Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard again. Today I'm going to be doing another one of my me versus the critics of a game that I like videos. Today it's going to be on Eminent Domain, which I have, done a review of recently, so you can go check that out. This is a game that, I really enjoy, but this is one that I can understand why people would not like it. I don't know what the people that I'm going to, on Board Game Geek, I'm going to see what their comments are. Maybe they don't even dislike it for the reasons that I could understand why, but we'll find out shortly. But just want to remind everybody, this is just in fun. I'm not really, mad at people for having different opinions, but it is enjoyable for me and entertaining, and I hope it's entertaining for you. And if you disagree with me, I welcome you to tell me why you think I'm wrong in the comments. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Starting with, let me just go ahead and say this. Board Game Geek, these are the ratings. There's 209 people who gave it a 10, 638 that gave it a 9, 2.6 thousand that gave it an 8, 2.4 thousand that gave it a 7, 1.5 thousand that gave it a 6, 467 that gave it a 5, so it's a pretty big drop off. Then there's 196 4s, 61 3s, 32 2s, and 22 1s. So again, as usual, most people tend to like it a pretty good bit. But I'm going to go for the bottom of the barrel, people who just cannot stand it. We're going to see what they think, if they have good reasons, and let's go ahead and get started. The first one is way long. Let's get reading. He says, first impressions. San Juan, which I have not played, meets deck building while trying to look like Roll for the Galaxy, which I have also not played. Some clever things like adding cards to the deck being mandatory and at the same time being used as a timing mechanism. While it is much, much simpler to grasp than Roll for the Galaxy, maybe even San Juan, as everything is done with copies of 5 basic cards and the unique cards are used sparingly, it has the same problem as Dominion for me. Okay, now I have played Dominion and I enjoy Dominion. Speaking of which, if I was going to say, I don't own Dominion, but if I was going to compare, I really think I like Eminent Domain more than Dominion, but they're both good games. So I probably will disagree with this guy right off the bat because I like Dominion, I like Eminent Domain. He doesn't like either one. So he says, the logic of playing well is to wrap your head around the system, which doesn't exactly hint at how it wants to be used, and I guess there is space to explore there, but I don't care for learning counterintuitive and or oblique strategies when they're driven by the game, not the players. The game sets strict limitations and asks for optimization within those. Interaction exists and is more important than in Roll for the Galaxy, but in the end, it's just the same old leeching. Another thing I'm not fond of, before I go further, he says that there's oblique strategies and that it's counterintuitive. He says counterintuitive and or oblique strategies. In either case of Dominion or Eminent Domain, the strategies are very straightforward. Let's see, in Dominion, in case anyone's played it, you're trying to get victory points. How do you get victory points? By getting money. So what do? You try to find the ways to get the most money. So you buy cards that give you more money or more action so that you can eventually get more money later so that you can eventually buy points. I mean, that seems so straightforward I can't even think straight. And Eminent Domain is also very simple. Eminent Domain, you get points by getting planets. Let's see, you get planets. I mean, in fact, it's almost scripted what the strategy is in Eminent Domain, especially as the base game. The more expansions you add, the more variation there is. But my gosh, you have Survey, which lets you get planets to put down. Then you can do Warfare or Colonize to flip those over and get you points and maybe other things to help you along the way. And then you have Trade and Produce, which lets you, produce resources on your planets if they have the slots for it, and then you trade them away for points. I mean, it's just a natural progression. And then at the end, you have Research, which is basically, typically, I would say it's more of a long-term thing. Once you have some planets, you start using Research to get some cool technologies that help you even more. But the point is, it's almost literally a chronological thing. You use the Survey to get the planets. You use Warfare and Colonize to flip them over to actually gain control of them. Then you use Trade and Produce to get resources and trade for points, and then you get technologies if you want to. I mean, I don't know how that's oblique or counterintuitive. It's literally thrown in your face. So I totally don't understand that. I don't get it. He says, another thing I'm not fond of is the graphic design. I generally like contemporary approaches. However, it doesn't present a thematic narrative like Roll for the Galaxy does. or I don't know. I don't have an argument against that because I don't know. But I will say this: I'm not a huge fan of the artwork on the technology cards that you can buy. But it's not horrible. It's not bad. It's just not quite what I would like. But overall, it's good, well done, and I like the look of the basic cards. That very clean and bold look. I think that looks nice. But that's neither here nor there. Instead, it's more like being in charge of an empire, but using Game Boy controls, so you don't get confused, and with this, you're as far from the real going-ons as the politicians are these days. Don't really know what he means by any of that. Game Boy controls, politicians, da-da-da-da, who knows. Still, the theme and the unique playstyle make it more interesting than San Juan for me. Now, that's interesting. So he doesn't like San Juan, and he says this is more interesting, but this got a 1. He must also give San Juan a 1 because, gosh, he puts this thing at the bottom of the barrel. But Fleet blows this completely out of the water. I don't know what he means by Fleet. He says, for a MPS, I like Roll for the Galaxy better, and for interaction, Fleet. Don't know what that is, so I can't really address that. He says, latest impressions. Currently still holding a bit above 1, but it's close. It's just so uninspiring and bland design, which manages to be more than meh than its influences. Elaboration. If memory serves, the gameplay is about optimization and memorizing those few special cards that shape a strategy, which means the playing space is very controlled and restricted, and like a good little maze rat, you count your steps and execute your path to grab a bit more cheese than the other rats. If this sounds fun, more power to you. A few card games of this type lack so much excitement in gameplay and visuals as this one for me. I think the visuals are nice. And I mean, whenever he says, now I don't think you have to memorize cards, first of all, because I have seen people do quite well just going after the original 5 cards. You don't have to memorize anything, they're right there. You don't have to go for technology cards to win. They could help you win, but you don't have to do that necessarily. If you really optimize your deck by getting, a good rhythm of colonizing and you're trading and producing, so you're constantly getting new planets and you're trading and producing more and more and more, you can get heaps of a lot of points. So that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. That's not, you don't have to memorize any cards. And here's the thing. A lot of the cards in each deck for the technology, as if you'll remember from my review, you have a few different types of planets. Your planets decide what technologies you can get. And the more of a given type of planet means you can get some really cool technologies. A lot of the technologies of the low-level ones are the same across the board for every type of planet. So you don't really have to memorize those because they're all kind of the same. And usually but there's a few exceptions. But then the more planets you get of a certain type, then you can get those specialized ones. And there's not many of them, so it's not that hard. And again, because whenever you get your planets, it may be that you don't get a large choice of what planets to get, which means that you might have, by not choice of your own, because of just the way that the planets came up, you might have one of each different type. Well, you don't have to memorize anything about the cards. You just need to know, well, based on what I have, what decks can I look through for technology that I can get? And then you look through the deck and see what you like. I mean, maybe that takes some time for some people, but I've never seen that as a problem, because overall, doing that is actually part of the enjoyable part, is looking through the technology and seeing, ooh, what could I get? What would be nice to have? Because you might change your mind. You don't need to memorize them. You just need to look and see what helps me right now and enjoy it. That's what I do. He says, rating down to 1 because uninspired, yeah, it's a crime. Oh, gosh. The more I played this, the more bland and pedestrian it felt. It's kind of a blend of tableau builders like Roll for the Galaxy and deck building, but being less than the sum of its parts. They decided to go down the path of having mostly a lot of the same cards, which is true, so it's more crucial to optimize around them than to think on the spot how they go together like in Roll for the Galaxy. Again, I don't know because I haven't played it. Visuals are terribly uninspiring, not evoking anything, and mostly looking like a game console. Oh, and there's some leeching added to optimization. Whee! Okay, well, I like video games, so honestly, looking like a game console, I guess, doesn't bother me, but it doesn't really look like one to me, so I obviously I disagree with pretty much most of what he says, and I don't get it. But moving on to number 2. This is the next number 1 out of 10. He says, the game that made me say bleep you TMG, meaning Tasty Minstrel Games, forever. Okay, this guy, he uses a little bit of language. He says that TMG decided to change backer rewards after collecting our cash. Okay, that has something to do with the Kickstarter. I know nothing about that, and honestly, it has nothing to do with the game itself, so they should not be giving the game a bad review just because they don't like the publisher. Okay, next, almost the worst deck building game. It is slightly different but feels very fidgety, and it's one of those games that always makes you feel like you're losing even when you're doing well. It clearly lacks replayability, since the games vary so little from game to game, mostly due to the lack of stressors that would encourage a player to take one route or another. You only get to make one of 5 actions, but realistically 4, since colonization and warfare conflict with each other, and it's at least slightly detrimental to try doing both. Okay, I don't know if I necessarily agree that colonizing and warfare are bad to do at the same time, because if you go for both, no matter what someone else does, you can follow them. And because here's the thing, whenever you take the role, if you're actually taking the role on your turn, the only advantage you get, the leader bonus, is being able to, instead of colonizing or getting more ships, is you settle the planet or you fight or conquer the planet. So you don't get a bonus as far as just extra ships or extra colonies, other than the one card that you pull off the top, if you want to count that. But that means that following is great in those cases. So if you have both, it makes it to where no matter what the other player or players are doing, you can follow them in what they're doing, which means they might colonize. And let's say you had 2 colonized cards, 2 warfare cards, and a survey card in your hand. Someone takes the colonized role. You go ahead and discard. You say, hey, I'll follow that. You use both your colonized cards. Bam! You got 2 colonies. Next person, they might do warfare. You say, hey, I will follow you. You spend your 2 warfare cards so that you get a few ships. Then it comes to your turn, and what role do you take? You take survey so that you can actually get more planets to use all this stuff that you're getting. I mean, I don't see how that's a problem. I mean, doing both. Now, I will say maybe this is a case where maybe I don't realize just how much optimizing there is to be done. But from my experience, following is very powerful. So if you have both, it gives you more chances to follow, which gives you more stuff going on. You don't really want to have a lot of cards in your hand by the time it gets to your turn, unless it's a lot of one thing that you want to just do a slam dunk move on. But for the most part, you want to be able to follow. So the more different kind of cards you have in your hand, the more following you can do. That's a good thing, in my opinion. So he says, you only get to make one of 5 actions. Oh, I think I finished him. So I guess the other thing I'll say is, I haven't played without the Exotica expansion, and that he says that there's basically no replayability because everything's nothing varies much. That may be more so in the base game by itself. I don't really know. I mean, obviously with Exotica you get those purple cards that give you that variable setup, which gives a lot of extra replayability, and it gives you more technology cards. It gives you the asteroids and exotic planets, which does add a lot more stuff going on, but the basic gameplay is still the same. So I hazard to say that there's still a lot of replayability in this game without the Exotica expansion. The game is, what gives it the replayability is the fact that your deck building in a way that you have to think long term. Do you want to try to go for technologies? And as you play, what technologies are available to you, it just happens fluidly. You're getting these planets and you go, oh, now I can get these technologies. But you can't plan all the way ahead to say, I am going to go get the best of the advanced planet technologies, because you may not get 3 of them in front of you. If you don't get 3 advanced planets, you can't get the best advanced planet technology. And that goes for all those. So what planets you get kind of guides what you can do. So you have to kind of adapt if you're interested in getting technology cards. All that matters, and that, to me, the replayability stays pretty fresh. This guy says, this game is bad and completely broken in my opinion. If everyone picks the same action repeatedly and runs one of the action decks out, the game is over before it even starts. When people asked about this on these forums, the designer told people they were playing wrong. What a joke. Now, I will say this. I have definitely played this where there were people who really tried to just rush through and emptied one of the stacks pretty quickly. And I was like, wow, that was too fast. Now, here's the thing. I would agree that probably is a bad sign that you're not really playing it optimally, because theoretically, you want to get that variety so you can do following, and you're probably not going to do nearly as well if you just go for one stack. However, I like the fact that you can do that because if you're doing well, you can suddenly decide to just rush through real quick and draw the cards to end it quickly if you're ahead. I think that's an interesting strategy that you can take. It could backfire on you because maybe your deck starts getting so full of the same card that it hurts you. I don't think that's a big deal. But if it is a big deal to you, just modify the way the game works. If you're playing with a bunch of people who just like to go for the same stack all the time, make it to where it takes 3 stacks to go away before the game ends. Or just eliminate that altogether, make it to where it only ends whenever the points are all gone. So that's an easy fix to me. Hey, this guy says, very professional publisher, rated 10, all of his games. Nothing bad here, and rated 1 to 3, most of the best games around. Yeah, very professional. Not a reason to give the game a 1. If you don't like the publisher, leave that to something else. Oh, gosh. Less than average deck builder. Up there with Nightfall. Never played that one. 1 victory path. Mad production. I think the production's pretty good. The worst run Kickstarter campaign to date. That may be, I don't know. And as a bonus, it's rated 10 by the designer and publisher. See, all these people, these people are just getting a little whiny. I'm not even going to read any more of the ones. They're just kind of too focused on the publisher, the designer, and all that stuff. I'm not worried about that. I want to know, is the game fun? This guy says, never again. Now I'm on the 2s. Never again. That's all he says. Okay, well, good for you. Never again will I read your silly review or comment. Player interaction is too static to create a varying play space. The game quickly stagnates. How does it stagnate? That's probably has to do with the players. If you have just players who keep on pulling the same thing, just warfare, colonize. Yeah, I'll admit that would be boring, but that's why you need to branch out and do more. This is a case where I think as a table you can start feeling like you need to do certain things for whatever reason, and really there's a lot more freedom to do what you want and do things in a different way than maybe it first seems to be. So try to think outside the box. Maybe that's the problem, because for me, I was always interested in trying to do a little bit of everything, and maybe some people aren't that way, and that could be what the problem is. I don't know. It's Race for the Galaxy re-implemented as a Dominion-style deck builder with neither the complexity nor elegance of either of those titles. Complete waste of money. Well, I disagree. What could have been? Many great cogs in this machine, but at its heart, a giant stack of tech cards you need to traverse to play. First of all, you don't have to have technology cards to win. You don't ever have to have any. So you don't have to, traverse through them if you don't want to. But he says, this is so much of a deal breaker, I will never teach anyone this game. This is one of those cases where I think I did see somebody, it was about the game Kemet, which I will review at some point. Kemet is a game where you have, if you don't know, it's a dudes on a map, as they like to call it, game. You got these soldiers, and there's a bunch of tiles over to the side. And these tiles, you can see them all, and you can at times buy these tiles with your prayer points. And whenever you buy them, they give you special abilities that make you unique. And I remember seeing somebody who basically said that they did not like Kemet because they don't like having to remember what all of those tiles are and all that kind of stuff, and having to look through them to figure out which one they want. I like that personally. That is something that I enjoy because I feel like, wow, there's so many options. Let me fish through here and see what I want. That's like I don't know, it's just fun and exciting because you feel like there's so many options and you don't know what to pick. But I understand that for some people that can be maybe a little burdensome, or there's just too much to go through or think about, and I understand that. So I'm not going to, if you don't like having a big old stack of cards that you might have to look through to see what your options are, probably not the game for you, because the technology cards for me are a big exciting part of the game. Even though you don't have to get them, that's part of the exciting part. You don't have to get them, but if you want to, you can, and there's a ton of them, and you can look through them and see what you want. So keep that in mind. If you don't like having those stacks of cards that you have to go through whenever you want to buy technology, then yeah, this game's probably not for you. A confusing and convoluted card game that goes on for too long. Oh my gosh, I'm the exact other way around. It's way too quick for me. Way too quick. I mean, every time I play, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already over. I was just starting to get somewhere. And it's not confusing or convoluted. It's super simple. You have an option to play an action, which is a card from your hand is an action, and you take a roll. That's it. I mean, I don't know how that's confusing or convoluted. Okay, quite okay, but there are much better deck builders. Oh, wow. And then he says, update 2016, reduced down to 2, never again. Oh, well, never again will I read your comment either. Yay, another Dominion. At least it is not the cluster mess called Thunderstone. The Microcosm version simply obsoleted this game for me. I haven't played the Microcosm version, and I just don't know what this guy's problem is. Okay. Okay, there's a language that I do not know at all. Looks like German, maybe. I'm not going to worry about that. This is a light-ish game with a deck-building element. It has a few interesting ideas, but I don't find it all that compelling. I think it's because everything is incremental. There are no big struggles or all-or-nothing decisions. Okay. I'll agree with that. There aren't any big struggles. I mean, for the most part, I mean, it's a deck builder. I mean, and it's not a deck builder where you have a lot of... There's not combat going on, so there's... I don't know what he means by no big struggles, but I can only imagine he means there's not a lot of interaction, and there's not a ton of interaction here. There's some, and there's the fact that you're following and everything else, but yeah, you're not blowing up other people's planets, which honestly I would like it if they added that, but you know, that I can live with the fact that there's not, so I don't really know exactly what he means though, so I'm not going to say anything else about it. This guy says, this game has flaws that I hope will be worked out with an expansion. Action versus roll is not always intuitive. Well, it is to me because it says on the card, action, roll. It tells you what they are, so I don't think that's a big deal. And I mess this up sometimes in my head, though playing correctly. Okay. Playing with 3 players, we found that the standard version of the game would be over before it even began. Now, I agree that the game can go too quickly. No doubt about it. Colonized cards were gone almost at the start of the game. Wow. Okay, that means they were all going for colonize. And yeah, if you just keep on going for colonize over and over and over again, that will happen. But that's why, and that's one of those things I can understand why that bothers people, because the people you play with, that may be how they play. They just want to keep on getting the same card over and over again. And if that's the case, it will go by too quickly before you can get your engine going. It's because, like I say, this is a deck builder and engine builder at the same time. You're building that engine of having a lot of icons so that you can follow other people's roles, and you're constantly doing all this cool stuff, you know, getting all these new cards. But if everyone goes after the one stack, it will end too quickly. But like I said, you can easily house rule that to where it takes 4, 5, all 5 stacks to go away before the game ends, or just focus, or just make it to where it's just the points. Whenever the points are gone, that's it, and that solves that problem. That's an easy fix. So I don't think that's a big deal. Okay, this one was really bad. I can't see how it's ranked as high as it is. If you want deck building, this is not the game you want, because you have no real control of your deck. Yes, you do. You pick exactly which cards go in it. I just am blown away by some things. He says, and you don't have any time to build a deck of combos either. Now, that could be, like I've talked about, the game end is too easy to achieve for a rushing player, which makes the settling strategy too simple and too effective. Very boring game, I thought. Okay, again, I agree with the fact that if you play by the rules where if one of the stacks is gone, that could go too quickly depending on your players. But if you realize your players are that way, house rule it so that it goes longer. I mean, that's not a problem. Boring. Don't see this landing on my game table again. That's too bad because it's awesome. Extremely generic and uninteresting deck building game. Seems to follow in the steps of Race for the Galaxy, another game I dislike. Well, so much for that. Dull, dull, dull. I love space games. I love deck builders. I don't like adding so many copies of the same action card to my deck. So boring. That's another thing. You have to understand that you are going to be adding a lot of the same card to your deck, but again, since you get to follow, to me that makes it interesting because you're adding cards that you're hoping you'll get to use in waves, like maybe play 3 at a time whenever to follow someone to get a lot done on their turn. So I think that's okay, but I can understand why some people wouldn't like it. That overall, by the time the game's over, the vast majority of your cards are going to be those 5. But those 5 are very useful, and that's like the key mechanic of the game. The bonus gravy is the technology cards that you can get later on that give you that extra kickstart. So, you know, I don't know. It just is what it is. Okay, I think I'm going to be done here. I might go to see a few 3s, maybe 1 or 2 if they're not too humongously long. Let's just see. This game is packed with mechanics, but they don't fit the theme. It's packed. Well, okay. I mean, a deck builder to me kind of is that way no matter what, but I don't know. This game really does not stand out from the rest of the competition. I'd rather play games that have deck building as one of the mechanisms and not the only one like Clank. Okay, well, I guess he just sound like deck builders, exclusive deck builders. To me, this is a deck builder and engine builder, but I understand mainly it's deck building. And if you don't like deck building, yeah, not for you. Very average, not terrible, but loses points due to it being such an obvious ripoff of Race for the Galaxy and Dominion. 2 great games. Now, to me, saying it's a ripoff of... Now, I've never played Race for the Galaxy, but Dominion I have. To say it's a ripoff would imply that it's so similar. But it's no more similar to Dominion than any game is to some other game that has a similar mechanic. I mean, dice rolling for combat. I mean, if you just said, "Oh, they're all the same. They're just rip-offs of each other," I mean, I'm sorry. That's just unfair. Because yeah, it's deck building like Dominion, but it's done in a completely different way. I mean, so many games have the same mechanisms, and here in Dominion, you have all these cards that you can buy, and you're trying to buy the best ones the quickest. Here, you have these 5 cards that you're going to be filling your deck with, and as you get your engine going, you might eventually come over here and buy some cool technology cards that add to it. To me, they're not really similar at all, other than the fact that they're deck building, but the actual feel and play, not even close. That's good enough for me. That should give you some ideas of if you would like this game or not, see what people don't like about it. Obviously, I disagree with most of them, but maybe you agree. So leave in the comments down below, do you agree, disagree? What do you think? What are your thoughts? And I appreciate you watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe. I'd appreciate that. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. So take care, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.